1 shot, 2 shot. What does 4 feel like? What does 8 feel like? And all of a sudden I'm taking 12 shots of vodka by myself. I think there's a good chance I could be dead.
Really?
Absolutely. A lot of people are trying to escape. Something is broken and I have no idea how to get out of this. The addict anthem is like, well, let me just get my life together and then I can go to rehab. It's not really how it works. We are facing an epidemic right now. This fentanyl is no joke, it's killing people. With this disease, the greatest thing that we can do is surrender. I had been on Oxycontin, lost a ton of weight, I was dope sick. He pulled me aside and just asked me, are you happy? And
how did that relationship with drugs and alcohol come to be?
You know, I think that for me, it was the first time in my life where I felt an escape from my head. What was going on in your head? I don't even know, but I just felt a reprieve. I felt this elation, this moment of like, all of these thoughts in my head are gone. And I am here with this bottle and no one's around and I get to be a secret and I get to hide this and I feel free. I feel free from whatever it was in that, 14-year-old puberty, hormonal teenager that was going on in my life. It was like, whoosh, quiet. And I had the allergy from the very beginning. It was, 1 shot, 2 shot. What does 4 feel like? What does 8 feel like? And all of a sudden I'm taking 12 shots of vodka, on a school night by myself, hopping on the bus and, running from the police. And it was a crazy first time drinking alcohol that never stopped for me. Every time pretty much that I drank turned into a crazy event like that. But I don't know exactly at the time what I wanted to escape from. I think that there was just that changing reality. There was that, I like to be able to skew what's in front of me and to silence the mind.
From going through the process of recovery and rehab and all of those things, you've met a lot of other people that have struggled with the disease of addiction. Has any of that process taught you anything about your own relationship or the causal factors of your own relationship with substances and alcohol?
I think that there's through lines, absolutely. And I think that for a lot of us that have the disease of addiction, there's trauma, there's childhood trauma. There's, if the disease kicks in later in life, maybe that trauma came into play later. But I think that there is a through line in what I have seen in others. And that's, some sort of thing that we're holding on to, or a secret, or, something that happened to us in life that drugs and alcohol kind of numbs and takes away. It quells that inner guilt, that inner shame, whatever it might be. I think that there's a through line between us addicts and our past. And then I think also there's people that just had the allergy, and maybe it's not related to trauma at all. Maybe we're not predisposed, or maybe we are predisposed. It's a combination. I don't know, but I do see that a lot of people are trying to escape.
It's a difficult thing, especially for the people around that individual. Because, going back to my own example with my best friend and business partner, I didn't have the tools to know how to be there.
Right.
And I also didn't have the information to understand what I was dealing with. Like if you'd asked me when I was 25, what was going on with my friend, he just loves to get drunk.
Right. It's part of the culture.
Yeah. And then when
this is what we do as 25-year-olds.
Yeah. If you were to give advice on how those around the individual who is struggling with the disease of addiction can be there, or what their role is supposed to be, or what would you say? What advice would you have given me at 25 years old?
I think that there's resources that we have. There's Al-Anon, where if you have someone it's a 12-step program for people that have loved ones or friends or whatever that are going through the disease of addiction, and how to show up. And they're in the basements of churches all over the world, or, community centers or wherever. They're free. And there's people that are going through the same common struggle of how do we show up in an authentic way and help save this person's life that we love. Because we don't have the information. For so many of us, I think that there's this notion of just stop. Why don't they just stop? Why are they hurting themselves? How could they do this to me? We make it about us, right? Like, how could they do this to me? How could they lie to me? How could they go out and say that they were gonna quit and then keep going? Why don't they see who they turn into? Just stop. Just stopping doesn't work. There needs to be a support system. There needs for the addict. We need 12-step meetings. We need therapy. We need, to evaluate our mental health. We need to work the steps. We need a sponsor. We need a community of people that share our very same struggle so we can see ourselves and experience the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. That is our piece. But until we get there, just stopping is almost impossible. And sometimes it takes, hitting those really low points of getting arrested or getting court mandated to go to, 12-step meetings. But on the other side of it, here you are with your friend, and you have no idea how to show up authentically in that moment and actually really come from a place of love.
I was so angry.
And you were so angry, right?
Yeah.
You're pissed. You don't know how to deal with that emotion. And you realize that once you go to these meetings, that just like the addict, we're powerless over drugs and alcohol, you're powerless over your friend. And there are things that you can do to help. There's probably things that you can do to maybe hurt, but overall, they have to be in enough pain that they want to change. And you're not going to be the catalyst. And you can put them in, I've watched it time and time again, of people with the best intentions that end up enabling, that end up, fueling the fire, that end up trying to help but not having the tools themselves. And I think that Al-Anon is the best, easiest, free way to, even if you want to go to a meeting or two, to get some skill set, some language, and to realize that at the end of it, come from your heart and leave the expectations aside, because this is their journey at the end of the day.
The moment that I described, this moment where we had kind of like an intervention, me and my best friend, and it was really a day we met on a Sunday in an office after the Saturday before. He'd got very, very drunk and caused a lot of problems with team members. He's talked about this, like doing things in public, going on someone's table next to the restaurant, the table next to his at the restaurant he was at with our team, grabbing their alcohol off the table and doing all these crazy things and getting kicked out of the restaurant. It was a surrendering the day after. And you used that word before.
Yeah.
We met in the office, and it was the first time I came with anger, and it was the first time he told me how he felt.
Yeah.
And he cried in front of me. And then my anger immediately evaporates, because it's the first time I've heard that this individual is suffering with something.
Right.
And there's a pain. And that was the day, the day he became sober, went to therapy, went on that journey. And he's been sober for 8 years since then. But it was that surrendering moment. Mm-hmm. It was that, like, him reaching out and saying, like, I need help, and me actually like listening.
Yes. You see him for what he is in that moment, which is hurting, which is an immense pain. He doesn't want to be like that. He feels the guilt and shame of his actions. He's tried to start and stop and go back and forth, and thinks that, okay, maybe it's just hard alcohol or dark alcohol, or maybe it's beer, or maybe it's the combination of this. He's tried everything, and he's hurting, and he doesn't know how to stop. He doesn't have the tools. And I think that surrender that you talk about is one of the most beautiful moments for an addict or an alcoholic, is like waving the white flag. We think about surrender as a weakness, right? Like, you don't surrender, you keep fighting, you keep going. No, with this disease, the greatest thing that we can do is surrender, is to snitch on ourselves, is to wave that white flag, is to let other people know that we are struggling on our own internally, that this is something is broken and I have no idea how to get out of this. And what did that do when he was able to be human to you? You were like, okay, now I can come from a place of love because I'm pissed off about what you did last night. and I'm pissed off that you've done X, Y, and Z, and that we've had this conversation or whatever the situation is. And you ask, what can you do as a 25-year-old friend of coming from a place of love, and I think compassion. And even if it's not, empathy isn't possible because that's not what you're going through. I think that compassion is what makes people feel, you know what, they actually care about me. It's not just like I'm pissing them off, but they actually care. And, just kind of like letting go of our own expectations of people and meeting them where they're at is always, the best place to show up from.
When was your moment of surrender?
God, I've had many. I think my biggest moment of surrender, I was 25 or 26 years old, 25, I think. And I had been on Oxycontin for, I don't know, a couple weeks, a month. And it caught up really quickly in terms of my addiction, to the point that, I lost a ton of weight. I'm scratching. I just was like, I was dope sick. And I had never really experienced that before. All the happiness, any serotonin was gone. It was one of those moments of, I remember like walking outside, and it was summertime in Seattle, which is like the most beautiful place in the world in the summer. And I remember walking outside on a tank top, and I'm like, I just started bawling being outside because I couldn't feel any sort of happiness. It was gone. It was like it had evaporated. And I didn't really want to be here anymore. Like, there was that moment. It was like there was no real suicidal ideation or plan, but it was just this like, maybe this world's not for me because I don't know what I'm doing here anymore. I feel nothing. Except deep grief and the obsession to get more. And it was shortly after that, I went to a family function, and I'm trying to, piece it together and just be presentable and just get through it. And my dad pulled me aside, and, I think my mom had asked him to talk to me because, we didn't grow up having too many heart-to-hearts. It was mostly with my mom, but my mom, I think, urged him to do it. He pulled me aside and just asked me, "Are you happy?" And that was my surrender moment. I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't lie to myself. It was a very clear answer of absolutely not. I am so broken. I don't even know what happy is anymore. And he asked me to go to rehab. Said that he would pay for it. And immediately, I wasn't ready for that surrender though. In that moment, I'm like, no. I've heard about these 12-step meetings. I'll go to those. I know someone that goes. And he came back and was like, I think that it would be really good for you to have these 28 days to just focus on yourself. And of course, there's always the like, well, I can't go because of this is happening and this is happening. We're not worried about those things happening when we're risking our lives doing drugs or copious amounts of drinking. We're just worried about it when it's like, now we need to go take care of ourselves. And it's like the addict anthem is like, well, let me just get my life together and then I can go to rehab. It's not really how it works. It's more like, we come in very, we're at our worst. No one goes to rehab when they're like, life's okay, but I think I need some rehab. No, people come in when they are at their bottom. And I was at mine. And just saying yes to him that day on the porch, saying that I would go, was my surrender moment. It was my white flag, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life, hands down.
Have you ever reflected on that crossroads moment, and if you'd chosen to go the other way and you'd said to your dad, maybe, yes, I am happy, when he asked at that family get
Right.
together, or when he said go to rehab, you'd said no?
I think there's a good chance I could be dead.
Really?
Absolutely. I was close at that time. I've been, this disease, we think we're so far away from death, you know, that we're immortal and that it won't happen to us. And I think I'm probably in my 30s in terms of how many people I know that have died from the disease of addiction. You know, when I wrote my first song about the disease of addiction called Other Side, when I got out of rehab, maybe in 2009, I had known 3 people. So we've gone up by probably around 25, 30 people since then. I'm not naive to how quickly it can happen. And taking into account fentanyl as well right now and what's going on with street drugs, it's rampant. We are facing an epidemic right now around the world, but particularly in America. I don't know how it is over here, but I think this fentanyl is no joke. It's killing people. They think they're getting one drug, they're getting another drug. And the nature of the disease, it is out to kill us. That is its sole purpose. And yeah, I'd be dead. I think so.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.